The central theme in our Parsha is Matan Torah. So this is a mimer that focuses on Matan Torah, although it wasn't said in Parshat Yitro. This is said after Shavuot, on the 12th day of Sivan, which is the culmination of the observance and celebration of Shavuot. Zman Matan Torah Seinu. The mimer opens with the words Vayedaber Elokim es kol advarim ha'elu lemer. God spoke all of these words saying. Now it's interesting that it says Vayedaber Elokim. Umedayik bezeh kveit kedushas ve'rivachomei admor. The Friedrich Rebbe is medayik in a mimer. Madua ne'emar kan shem Elokim. Why is it here when the Torah describes God's giving the Torah, it uses the name of God, which is Midas Hadin, which is, as a rule, emblematic of God's measure of judgment or restraint, of tzimtzum. L'cha'ira, ostensibly, this moment is the greatest moment of revelation, at least till Mashiach comes for sure. It's mass revelation. And if anything, the name Havaya is applicable here. The name Havaya Yud Kivavke is the name of revelation, where God reveals himself. Here God revealed himself to us. And yet, the Torah introduces God's communication by saying Vayedaber Elokim. And Elokim indicates restraint. It indicates concealment. Ubefrat shebematan Torah nichlu kol hinyanim shebetorah. This is especially meaningful because it's not merely a historical curio. So we're looking back at Zman Matan Torah Seinu. We're saying, I wonder why it said Shem Elokim. Not that it affects us at all, but I wonder why then, when it was talking about a revelatory experience, it would use the name of God, which indicates concealment and restraint. But the Rebbe points out that ultimately, Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, and the mass revelation that took place at Mount Sinai, includes everything in Torah for all time, for posterity. This is the moment of revelation from which everything hails. And including Kol Masha Talmid Vasik Asir L'Chadash, anything which an upright and sincere student who diligently applies himself and, so to speak, discovers the novelty that the student stumbles upon, that was also saying Nitnel Matan Torah. And not only this, that the Matan Torah is Nitne Gam Tirasa Shal Mashiach. Even though when Mashiach will come, there will be mass revelation in an extraordinary way. And it says, Ayin B'ayin Yiro will see God, so to speak, eye to eye, whatever that means. But the Torah of Mashiach, the Torah teaching of Mashiach, Sha'aleh Ne'emar about it, this is written, Yeshakeni min Ashikas Piyu. This, of course, is a verse from Shir HaShirim, right in the beginning, where it says that he kisses me with the kiss of his mouth. Or Pirush Rashi, as Rashi explains, that this is a euphemism and a metaphor for Soy Ta'amea U'Mister Tzvunaisea, that this is a euphemism for the secret rhyme and reason, the secret behind the veil, and that will be revealed. The Afshan Ne'emar, that even though it says with regard to the coming of Mashiach and the Torah, that will be spoken then. In the 51st chapter of Isaiah, it says, Ki Torah Chadasha Mi'iti Teitzei, that a new Torah will come forth. Ve'isa b'medrash, and the Medrash comments on this, and it says, the Torah Chadasha Mi'iti Teitzei means Chidush Torah, a refreshing of Torah, a novelty of Torah. You know, sometimes your computer screen freezes, you're not getting the image, and then you have to refresh. It's like rebooting, refreshing of Torah. Mikol Makim, how do you do a Pizgam Rabbi Seinu Nisiyenu? There is a famous saying of the Rabbeim, which this is quoted in the famous Hemshech of Samach Vav. The Friedrich Rebbe invokes this also. Matan Torah vet gen zweite Mal nit sein. There will not be a second Matan Torah. Matan Torah was a once in history experience. V'chol hinyan shebetorah, and therefore everything that's included in Torah, nitna b'matan Torah, was already given when the Torah was given. The mikol zeh muven goydel ha'ilui shabigilui in the Matan Torah. From this we can only imagine how great is the revelation at the time of Matan Torah. So it's not just that was a revelatory moment in history. It's not just the Matan Torah bespeaks revelation, not concealment. And so we ask the question, Vayedaber Elokim? Elokim, the name of God, the name of judgment, the name of restraint. This should have been Vayedaber Havaya. But we step back and take a look at the larger panorama of history and see that this moment is the source of all revelation for all time, even the coming of Mashiach. So Why did it use the name Elokim? This makes it even more puzzling. Madua nemar kan Shem Elokim, a midah, a measure of din and tzimtzum. And furthermore, the Alpi Maimed Azal, based on the saying of our sages, which is found in the Zohar, Yistakel Be'eraiso Bara Alma, that God, so to speak, looked into the Torah, and then He created the world. Moving, it's understood that we're talking about the highest level of revelation of Torah. That if there was a time that creation reached fruition, if there was a time that the whole world was, so to speak, spiritually on fire, that everything was as best as you could imagine it to be, that was the time. So, that was the time. This is the time creation felt its creator. This is the time all of creation, so to speak, screamed with the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's anything but concealment. This is like rolling back all the concealment with which the world was created, and yet, Madua Nemar Kan Elokim, which is indicative of tzimtzum, of din and tzimtzum. Gam Yodua Hadiok, the pasuk Zebelukut Tetei L'Rabbeinu Hazokin. There's also a precise analysis of the verbiage that goes back to the Alter Rebbe and L'Kut Tetei. Masha Nemar Kan Hadvarim Ha'ela. These words. Dvarim is words. Ha'ela is these. The Eila Meira Al Gili Davar. When it says Eila, it's indicative of something which is very clear, something which is very transparent. It's like saying Hadvarim Ha'ela. These things. You see what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about something in cloud 9. I'm not talking about something which you can't see. Hadvarim ha'ela. I'm talking about these very things that are right before you. What does that come to tell us? And how do we leave in any way informed of something which you didn't know before? When you say Hadvarim ha'ela, of course it's Hadvarim ha'ela. Of course this was revelation. Of course. That's what Matan Torah was. God was speaking and we were listening and we felt and knew His presence. When you look at it from a very, very straightforward perspective of the actual scripture, even if it wouldn't say this word of Ha'ela, it would have said Vayedaber Elokim es kol hadvarim, we would know exactly what you're talking about. So if you want to say that Ha'ela was contributed in Pshat, say, okay, that's why I said Ha'ela. Proverbially speaking, Ha'ela is not necessary. Everything about this communication is Ha'ela. Ha'ela means revealed. Everything is revealed. This is one big revelation. Okay, but from Pshat we needed it. But we don't. In fact, if the word is missing, nobody would say, hey, something's off with the grammar here. Vayedaber Elokim es kol hadvarim ha'ela. Vayedaber Elokim es kol lamer. You would say, es kol what? It had to say the word hadvarim. But if it wouldn't say hadvarim ha'ela, nobody would know the difference. It wouldn't diminish the Pshat in the least bit. So in that say, it should have said, God said all these words, saying, what? Anochi Hashem Elikecha, I am the Lord your God, until to the end of Matan Torah, the end of Aseres HaDibros, the 10 statements of Chol Asher L'Reyehu. Gam Madua Nemar Teves Leimer. Another question is, we say, Vayedaber Elokim, we don't understand why Elokim is there. It's called Advarim Ha'ela. Why is Ha'ela there? And this is Leimer. So Leimer usually was when Moshe Rabbeinu gets a commandment, he says, Leimer, this is what you should say. But here, Moshe Rabbeinu was not really speaking to the Jewish people. Who was speaking to the Jewish people? Hashem was speaking to the Jewish people. Especially the first two dibros, the first two statements were direct. Not only that Moshe was repeating the words of God, and we heard God intoning the words to Moshe, but didn't get it clearly, and then we heard it through Moshe's voice. No, we heard it, mamash, directed through God. So what's the lamer for? The B'chomak in Pirush lamer, or lamer la'achedim. Lamer in Hebrew means say to them. Say to them. I'm speaking to you directly. Why should God say to them? It's when something is said to one, in order for you to tell somebody else. The teacher calls over the class monitor, tell the students such and such. Okay, fine. But here the teacher is speaking to the students, and he says, I want you all to say such and such. To who? She's speaking to all the students. Why does she have to say lamer? Why do I have to say lamer over here? Mashenken, V'shas Matan Torah, Harei Hayu Kan Kol Yisrael. All of Israel is present. And then we have this idea that all the neshamas, Hasidus Lavei, all the future souls, we were also there. If you don't remember, you're in good company, but that's how it is. And it was real. It wasn't just like some proverbial idea. It's a literal concept, but this is a subject for another day. But we were there. Everybody was there by Har Sinai. So therefore, everybody is Shamu b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Advarim Eila. We all heard these words in open, vivid color. So what's lamer? Elokim doesn't seem to make sense. Ha'ela doesn't seem to make sense. And lamer doesn't seem to make sense. V'hinei Matan Torah harehoyo b'kelis uvrakim. The Torah is giving was, as we learned yesterday, with enormous ear-splitting sounds. An amazing light show, unlike any other. The Rabbeim are medayik in many of them embarim. Mahu kol harash hagadol. What's the big deal? Who ordered the fireworks? And if it wouldn't be fireworks, it'd be less of a Torah. Who was God trying to impress? Koilos, Brokim, lightning, thunder. Besides everything else, harei ha'inyanim, it seems, l'chayda, aseres hadibris, the things of these 10 statements are inyanim pshutim. They're very simple things. They're really not that profound. It's straightforward. Anybody can relate to the notion. Don't be jealous. Don't lie. Don't steal. Basic. There are people who keep these things without having a Torah b'chlal. Treat your parents nicely. Okay. If there would be something like unbelievable, God says, I'm going to tell you guys something now like you never heard, you can't even imagine. The whole world's going to be blown apart what I said. Okay. We're listening. We're ready. And what? No, all right. We heard that before. That's all? Just don't be jealous? I shouldn't lie. Okay, I won't lie. Don't kidnap anybody. Okay, I won't kidnap anybody. Like, what's the big deal? We say that the Jewish people had to get the Torah with this lightning and thunder, that they were trembling, they were terrified, they were in a sense of absolute, overwhelming awe. What? In order for these ideas to be accepted and downloaded and become part of the Jewish people. And even though in a previous Maimon the Rebbe explained how all of the ideas of Torah are already encoded into Aseres HaDibros, including Kol Mashat Hamud Vasek Asel Lechadish, whatever somebody will come up with. It's also in Aseres HaDibros until even inclusive of the Torah of Mashiach. And you might think, so that's what lightning and thunder was about. Not about the apparent message, but about the subtle message. Not about the message which is obvious, but about what was behind the scenes. But you cannot deconstrue the verse from its literal meaning. And in the literal meaning, the verse speaks of things which are quite simple, even if you want to read into them. And in Pshuta Shal Mikra, there was still Koilos Ubrakim Elapidim, there was still lightning and thunder, literally, and it was somehow connected to these words that were being said. Why? Shem Aseres Hadibris, these are 10 statements, and according to the simple meaning, Advarim Pshutim. They really, for the most part, seem to be very simple things. Maybe we could explain this differently. Precisely because in these 10 statements, all that is part of the Torah is already included. In order that the study of Torah, in which we'll be opening, like you have everything packed together and you unaccordion it, so we're going to be opening and developing everything that was given at Matan Torah in future generations. So because of us, that's why they had to tremble. Because they were getting something which was so profound, so intense, so powerful, so they were trembling so that we would tremble, so that we would study Torah with a sense of awe and reverence, not sit in a library and be afraid to make any noise. That we would be into this. And that's why there had to be things which transcended nature. The Keilus Ubrakim. Kedei lintoya, the Rebbe said in Yiddish that day, to plant, to implant in Yisrael, in our nation, a sense of Ema and Yira. Otherwise, Chas v'Shalom, it becomes Jewish studies, academic indifference, some ivory tower reality that has nothing to do with holiness. The Rebbe says, you can't really say this, because when you read the pasuk, nobody comes to the conclusion, right, lightning and thunder for 1,000 and 2,000 years later. That's not the conclusion you come to. Lightning and thunder for what happened right there. That's what it was about. It's pretty clear that it was for that time specifically. That situation. In other words, Neisif al Pulasam, Lasas Eis, Vetekef, Ve'er, Vechayes, Haderes Haboyim. In addition to the truth that Matan Torah would be a big deal futuristically speaking, and we would talk about the future, and we would be in awe of what was, and therefore what is. But it first has to make sense in its original setting, and then you can kind of project onto the future. Then can any move on? So I have a lot of questions here. This mimer packs in a lot of questions. Sometimes you have a mimer, 2-3 questions packed into a little paragraph. Here we have a big slew of questions just to review it all, because the explanation is going to be relatively simple or small. The questions are Elokim. Why the name of Elokim? The questions are Ha'ela. Why these? Obviously, the whole word is superfluous. The question is Lamer. To who? Say to who? We're all there. And finally, the question is, what's up with the light show? Why all the tumult? On a straightforward level, what was it contributing? I know it seems that these are 4 disparate questions, and these disparate questions or ideas have nothing to do with one another, but actually they're all from the same source. It's all the same thing. And the Nakuda, the kernel of the explanation, this is something that goes on and is developed elsewhere in great length, even in this Maimar at greater length. But here's the Nakuda. The Nakuda is, here's the point. You take this point, run with it, it really answers all the questions. The giving of the Torah, a major moment in Jewish history. It didn't come in isolation. It followed intense preparation. It required the counting of the Omer, so to speak, and Lifnei Zeh. Before the counting of the Omer, what was necessary was Yetziah Mitzrayim, Exodus from Egypt. And in order for there to be Exodus from Egypt, which is going to be meaningful, there had to be Lifnei Zeh Hagolus Mitzrayim. There had to be the Egyptian exile. Shahoyo ba'aveda kasha, which was with intense and crushing labor. B'chaymer u'v'leveinim. Ukashem shahoya bizman. And just as it is chronologically speaking, that Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, hoya acharei hakdama sa'avedas perech the Golus Mitzrayim. It came necessarily after the crushing and incredibly painful and difficult subjugation and slavery in Egypt. Kain hu gam be'pu'ulas ha'Torah. The same thing is also with the effect that b'chedei shedivrei ha'Torah yiskablu v'yiflu pu'ulasam kedarush. In order for the words of Torah to be received, in order for them to have their desired effect upon us, tzarech liyes b'hakdamas ha'aveda de'iskafia v'yishapcha. In order for us to be able to appreciate the Torah's message, we need to work with ourselves. We need to restrain ourselves. We need to deny ourselves. You don't just give in to every whim. Oh, I think I'll just have that. Why? Because I can. And from a Hasidic Yid's perspective, that which is permissible is not necessarily necessary. There was a ballad that Hasidim used to sing, and it went something like this. It says for the Misnagid, it says, that which is permitted, it's permitted. That which is not permitted, no, a little doesn't hurt too much either. But for the Chassidim, the ballad goes, that which is not permitted, avada is not permitted. And that which is permitted, who says you need it? This is the thing. Chassidim used to toil, work with themselves, not to give in. It's called in Yiddish, sich noch geben. Don't just give in everything you want. The ice cream is kosher, you have to stuff your face with it. So what? In other words, a person doesn't have to live a life which is material gratification centric. It's not about what's good for me, what I like, what I enjoy. It's what's HaKadosh Baruch Hu want. And this Aveda ultimately requires not only iskafia, not only crushing and restraining the Yetzer Hara and the animal soul, but ultimately it requires this hapcha. It requires transformation. It requires us to marshal the ability to take whatever it is, the koiches, or the abilities that the animal soul has, which could take us in a negative place, and to harness it and redirect it and channel it for something holy, which is not its natural state. It's not the way it is without any kind of effort. It's only when it's developed. It's potentially good, but right now it's inappropriate. And you have to work with that. And this, my dear friends, is what Yiddishkeit's about. The Torah does not just come just like that. Oh, you want Torah? No problem, here's Torah. You want to learn Torah? You want to understand Torah? You want to appreciate Torah? You want Torah to change you? You have to change yourself first. And only after a person, if you will, proverbially plows his own field, could he expect the seeds to sink in and dissolve. The Aveda Zukshura Emidas Hagvura Vatzimtzum. This Aveda of reining yourself in. This Aveda of restraining yourself. This Aveda of a Yid's willingness and ability to crush his own desires, his own wants, his own lusts. This is something that's connected to the midah, to the measure of judgment and severity and strength and restraint. You got to rein in, restrain your own nature, v'regilusay, and the habits. A person needs to, so to speak, overcome his nature and that which comes from nurture. Until a person comes to a skafia, where he doesn't just knee-jerk in fashion give in to everything that he or she wants, but rather we restrain ourselves and don't give in to it. And furthermore, to actually take these qualities, which actually they're not qualities, they're demerits, take these notions, take this part of ourselves, and to redirect it, to create a hapcha, which is not easy. You want to get the Torah? Sure, it's great. Moshe Rabbeinu is told by God, when you'll take them out of Mitzrayim, when you'll take them out of those limiting circumstances, that's when you'll be able to serve God in this mountain. If you want to get the Torah, you first have to go out of Mitzrayim, your own personal Mitzrayim. There's mitzarim and gvulim, these narrow strains, the things which constrict or obstruct the nefesh halikis. You have to get past that. And when you get past that, hainu gam mi mitzari hanefesh habamis. When we say Mitzrayim, we mean the limitations of the animal soul. The gam mitzari hanefesh halikis. We're even talking about the limitations of even the godly soul. That too, even that. Kafi shehi b'shar shom hakeda. That's where it all stems from. The dafka oz efshali is tavdunus Elokim al harazeh. Then we can serve God in this mountain. Then the Torah can be received in its fullness. And just as it was for those who left Mitzrayim, those who experienced the Exodus, the Kabbalah Torah for them was after the Golus of Mitzrayim. The receiving of Torah came after the exile, after the Exodus. In the same way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to implant within the heart of each and every member of Am Yisrael a sense of awe, a sense of reverence, a sense of inner restraint, a sense of pulling it together, not just giving in. The notion in the Western world that everything a person has naturally has to be good and it has to be holy and it has to be fantastic and you have to make a parade to celebrate it, from a Torah perspective, is totally wrong. If a person is born with certain qualities or demerits or desires or lusts, what should he do with it? Rein it in, battle it. I should spend my whole life battling my urges? Oh, that's what Yiddishkeit is about. Your whole life battling it? But that's not fun. I want to just live, man. I want to be cool. I want to hang out. Yeah, it's real nice. It's just not Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit says you have urges. If they're not what the Torah wants, then you have to overcome them. And every one of us has urges and desires which are unhealthy. We're born with them. Hashem created us that way. Not so that we should return to our Maker the way we came. So that we should change these things. And therefore, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah in a way that shook us up. Matan Torah was Shem Elokim. Kivish b'nei Yisrael ba'avaydasam yiyah b'chinas oved Elokim. You have to be like an eved before Hashem. And an eved before God toils. There's no fun in avdos. Avdos is not fun. It's servitude. It's obedience. It's lahafech es hatzimtzumim va'agvulim. It's ultimately we have to roll back and peel away the layers of concealment. You know what our job is? Our job is to take the Elokim and turn it into ha'ela. To turn it into revelation. The things which were concealment for God, those things should become a catalyst for revelation. And that's what life's about. The very notions, the very dimensions of our soul and our life that stands in the way of Hashem is being revealed in this world, that is exactly what should be harnessed and utilized to promulgate revelation. That's Vayedaber Elokim, es kol hadvarim ha'ela. It starts with Elokim, but the direction it goes is ha'ela, and ha'ela means revelation. But that revelation only comes after Vayedaber Elokim. And that means Shemidas HaGevura, that the measure of judgment and restraint, Nasa B'chinas Gilui, it reaches a level of revelation. That la'asad lava, laila kayom yor. And when Mashiach will come, the night will illuminate like darkness. Nobody knows what that means. But it will happen. Shahalayla atzma yor. Not that there will be no more night. It will be night. But it will illuminate anyway. So the night will shine. Darkness will shine. This is more than the virtue or quality of light is appreciated when you don't have it. Like anything. When you don't have it, that's when you appreciate it. When a person was in a dark place for a long time and then he came into an illuminated place, he said, I never knew how wonderful light is. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the Yisr Ha'or. We're not talking about the virtue of light because or when it's framed by darkness. Or Yisr HaChochma, the virtue of wisdom when it's framed by foolishness, by Sichlus. There's something added here. There's an inyan naila. There's a higher notion, and that is that the light itself illuminates. Imagine a sin becoming a mitzvah, a sin which gets in the way of your relationship with God, and the sin is transformed into something that brings you closer to God. And that's Vayedaber Elokim es kol advarim ha'ela lemer. What's lemer? The af shehu yedei Shem Elokim. That even though it comes to Shem Elokim, and it's in a way of dibur, which is talking, tough talk, as we learned earlier this week, lashon kosher. And there's a harshness about it. From Vayedaber, it comes to lemer, and lemer is a permutation of the word omar or amira. And as we learned earlier, amira means lashon raka. So from telling him off, it comes to gently and softly spoken. And that's the idea of Vayedaber Elokim es kol advarim ha'ela. The restraint, the gvura, turns into Eila, into revelation, and that in turn turns into Lemer, into Omar. Vayedaber becomes Omar. That from the harsh, tough words, there comes a soft and gentle words. Until we talk about the full revelation, the Be'efim Vayeded Havayel Har Sinai, to the point that God Himself reveals Himself in Mount Sinai, until we say that Atzmas Mahus is revealed at Mount Har Sinai, and Hashem comes along with all the angels and so on and so forth, as it said. And from all this we can understand why it's necessary and important to have the kolos and the brokim, and that the Matan Torah experience was not a comfortable, relaxing experience, but it was a shakedown experience. And it shook up our reality, and it shook us up as people, because that was HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving us the matrix to be able to change ourselves. You shake yourself up, you change yourself, and when you restrain and change yourself, then ultimately this allows you to reveal the godly potential that HaKadosh Baruch Hu invested within us and within all of creation. And that's the tahalich, that's the direction of the journey that started at Matan Torah, that's leading us to the redemption through Mashiach. And we have another half of the Maimer, but no time left. May we get there speedily and in our days. Thank you everybody for joining us. Good Shabbos of Matan Torah should lead us to Torah Chadasha Me'iti Teitzei speedily and in our days. Amen.